if I can answer the question and take off on some of what Bill said. You know, I know what happened in Guilford. I interviewed Billy Bear, even before he got arrested.
Arrested?
Yeah, he was arrested by the Guilford police for...
Oh, the apparent complaining. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, apparent complaining. So that was another one of those you just can't make this stuff up thing. And, but to your specific question, you know, their answer was, oops, we screwed up. Okay, and this is where things get a little complicated, right? So if a teacher didn't notify the parents in accordance with policy, then the teacher needs to be held accountable. And it needs to be done in a way that's decisive so that we don't have similar lapses of memory. The book in question, by the way, was it 19 Minutes, Jodi Picoult. Hardly an author of classics in my memory, to be humble opinion. However, it becomes a personnel matter. And state law is very intrusive, or it might as well be the Iron Curtain. Okay? You know, there's some stuff that's going on in Manchester right now that I can't speak about, but if we could, you know, if we could let people know what is happening and why, I think you'd see a lot less of it happening. So, do we know what happened to the teacher who did not follow district protocol? No, we don't, because we can't. So can we say nothing happened? Can we say what happened was appropriate and a sufficient deterrent to it happening again? No. But if it keeps happening, then the board has got to hold the district administrators, not the people in the school, accountable for the repeated failures of the staff in the schools to do their job. Now, as to the question about when you go to an elected official, and this is, honestly, this is tricky, right? So I can't tell you how many complaints that I've gotten, okay? Is it appropriate for me to say to the person, have you addressed this with the teacher? Yes, I have. Have you addressed it with the principal? Yes, I have. Okay. Should I call the teacher as the school board member? Somebody, this is audience participation now. Should I call the teacher as a school board member? No. Absolutely not. Should I call the principal? Absolutely not. Who should I be calling? Superintendent. Or if I know who the direct supervisor of that school is, in Manchester we have the schools broken up between assistant superintendents, it's always appropriate to go to the superintendent. Now, the superintendent is going to do one or two or three things. Okay? They're going to say, thank you, Mr. Gerard. I will look into it. And I'll follow up, and they'll say, it's a personnel matter, I can't tell you.
No, we can tell you.
No, we can't. And it won't. Because in personnel matters, school boards, and most people don't understand this, if an administrative action is taken, the school board sits as an appeals board.
You can't sit on that board.
It's a quasi-judicial organization. So if you are given information, you disqualify yourself from sitting. And the superintendent technically has violated the law, so they can't tell you. They cannot tell you. So that's a problem. Or they said, well, you know, it involves student privacy.
Yep.
I can't tell you. But if the parent contacted you, the parent can give them permission to tell you. So, you know, there is a practical chain of command that has to be followed because it invariably infringes either on personnel rights or student rights. And there are legal restrictions to your knowing what the conclusion is. We have to take, as school board members, it's been addressed. Can you tell me how? No. And it's very difficult. But there are a lot of times where parents will not go to the teacher because, as I told you before, they don't want to be that parent or the principal because they don't want to get the teacher in trouble, so they go to you. And your only course of action there, your only proper course of action, really, is to refer it to the administration and let the administration do what it does. Now, in terms of getting the parents involved, you know, there was Bill mentioned something that every school district should have when it comes to reviewing materials to go into the classroom, right? My first year on the board, I was on the curriculum and instruction committee, and there was a curriculum review guide The administration set out how often it was going to review things and the process it was going to go through. Do you know what the role of the parent was in the curriculum review guide? It was to attend open houses and inform the school of any information it should know about their kid. And the people who were going to review the curriculum and make proposals for revisions, changes, etc., was what I call a circular firing squad. They were all people whose address was the district headquarters. Now, I never got the changes that I was looking to get, but I did stop that curriculum guide from going through. And what were the changes that I was looking to get? Much like what Bill has in Bedford. But it seems to me, in an era where we're all conscious of college and career readiness, that if you're going to review and update your curriculum, maybe you should be drawing off of local colleges. In Manchester, that's not a problem. And getting professors who actually teach freshmen and sophomores to review your standards and your curriculum. And, you know, the Chamber of Commerce types, the trades, you know, the home builders industry, or any number of trade groups, so that we're reviewing specific things. We can look at them and say, if our kids are graduating being able to do this, will they be functional in your college? Will they be functional in your trade? Will they be functional here? Will they be functional there? So that we can actually get that feedback from the so-called experts who our kids are going to have to be able to function with, in addition to parents and teachers in the classroom. But no, it was, you see anything that's a stacked deck, and it's a stacked deck if the only people involved in the decision-making work for the superintendent. And I'm not talking about the classroom teacher either. That's a really big problem. And so what do? Sometimes, frankly, you have to be that board member, I know I have been, where you go to the public to get people fired at election time. David Pearl, God rest his soul, from Hooksett, former Hooksett school board member, budget committee member, his kids went to Pembroke Academy. Does anybody remember the mess that Pembroke Academy got into?
Which time?
Where their dean of students got caught
Heroin.
with anabolic steroids, heroin, and needles, and they didn't tell anybody, except the parent read a police blotter log of the Pembroke Police Department, and then all hell broke loose, and David Pearl, through a right-to-know request, found that the administration had suppressed the information and then lied to parents about what took place. And when all of the emails demonstrably showed that the superintendent lied, the school board did nothing. Literally did nothing.
They actually circled the wagons around it.
Yeah, around her. What was her name? Sherman, Patty Sherman. And she's still there. Okay? So sometimes you gotta find somebody to run, and you gotta make stuff like that an issue. There's no reason whatsoever that anybody involved in that chain of command should still have their job.
That's right.
And those are things. And finally, I'll wrap up on this. Manchester, until this year, was one of those places where the public would come, say its piece, and there was no interaction between board members. And I'm going to be frank, and I'm going to say something that's probably a little unpopular. I don't know that it's always practical to have a back and forth with every member of the public that comes to speak. I've seen that. I've seen it in Hooksett. You know, where they have public forum at the beginning of the meeting, and then they have another public forum at the end of the meeting. But what we would do, up until a recent change, what we would do is, you know, if we were concerned as individual board members about something that a member of the public brought up, if it were an agenda item, we'd address it there, but if it weren't, under new business, we would ask the administration about what was brought, because you can bring up anything under new business. And by the way, our rules in Manchester, under new business, you can bring anything up, but you can't make a motion. If you want to make a motion, see, this keeps people from coming in and torpedoing your agenda. You know, bringing up this big change that they rigged and got the votes for at the last minute.
Yeah.
Oh, under new business, I'd like to motion that we adopt a policy X.
batting cage.
Huh? So what we did said is, any motion has to be placed on the next meeting agenda, so that the public can be made aware, and we can take the public comment. But under new business, we would ask the superintendent or the administration about what was brought up in the public. And we have a particular problem in Manchester with teachers. who come and say things, like there was a stabbing, just happened the other day. You know, a teacher claimed that there was a stabbing at the school. You know what the stabbing turned out to be? It turned out to be a kid who threw a pencil accidentally, and the pencil hit a teacher. This was a stabbing, and we have a particular problem with teachers that will come and say demonstrably false things in public session to try to make the administration or the board or somebody look bad. So we will ask the administration about that, and we will get a report at the next meeting of the board on those things. But now we have this thing called response to public comment. It's an official agenda item, and response to public comment is supposed to be so that board members can either ask questions or make referrals on matters raised by the public to a committee. But instead, it's become this hour-long show for the cameras where people, quite honestly, will sit there and bloviate over what was said. And that usually, by the way, means they are sort of in on what was brought forward by whichever person brought it forward. So, you know, as a board, you should be responsive to the concerns raised by the public. They should have a vehicle to express those concerns. They should have a way of addressing them. But you're not there to dialogue with members of the public, because what you will find is that you get yourself 2 or 3 new school board members who will insist on being part of the dialogue going forward. I'm all for public participation, but there's got to be some sort of, there's got to be some sort of structure or restraint to it.
A battery guy?
Crop TV.